Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am here today with Kamau Williams, who is joining us from the other side of the country from where I am. And it is amazing that I have people joining this podcast from all over the US and Canada and all over the world, actually. So thanks, Kamau, for being here and for being willing to share your story today. Why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on your show. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. My name is Kamau Williams. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan area. I was born in Highland Park, which is a city inside of the city of Detroit, and was raised there all my entire life. I went to Detroit Public Schools until about my 10th grade year, 11th grade year. I earned a scholarship to go to Cranberry Kingswood, and from there I attended Michigan State University. And after which I lived in the Lansing area for a few years and moved back to Detroit and married and started having children, building a family. And then we moved to where I am now, which is Fort Worth, Texas. And been here, this is the beginning of the 13th year here in Texas. And I work in the airline industry now. And I raised my family and going on 20 years of marriage.
Woo!
And it's been life, and it's a lot of fun taking care of kids and taking care of other people and being a responsible adult.
Beautiful. Love it. Obviously, you haven't always enjoyed life this much. Gosh, I can't speak today. Just so excited to talk to you. You haven't always enjoyed life this much, or you wouldn't be here on the podcast today. So why don't we go back to those days where things were not so enjoyable and you were kind of wondering what life was all about and why you were here and whether you should keep living it?
I was probably in about fourth or fifth grade. I'm pretty sure it was fourth grade. And
Okay.
my
For
parents,
just for our international listeners, that would make you about 8 or 9 years old.
about 8 or 9 years old. Yes,
Okay.
It was Christmas time. I remember being at my grandmother's house and being very, very upset. My parents had split up, and when you have three brothers, when you're part of three brothers, you're the youngest. You tend to be picked on a little bit, which is looking back on it's not that big of a deal because that's what siblings do. But when you're 8 years old and a sensitive kid, it's a big deal. And when your parents split up and you think you can do something about it, and find out that as an adult, really that was their issue, not mine.
Right.
But as at that age, I internalized it as if it was something I could do to make it better. And of course you can't, because that's their issue. And so you're sad that you can't have your family the way it was, and you're sad that your brothers are. That's probably how they dealt with it. Now I think about it, it was just that's their way of lashing out. That wasn't me in terms of that type of a person.
Mm-hmm. But you were the easy one to pick on.
That was the easy one to pick on, and that was just our dynamic, and that started long before our parents, got into that situation. Normally, brothers will fight and until somebody break it up, and then you go on living. 5 minutes later, you're playing, but that's just that was our dynamic. But with all that on me as a weight, and having the responsibility of having to be partly taking care of the new house in terms of more responsibilities in the house. As an 8 or 9 year old kid, it got to be a little bit overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It was I remember vividly. It was Christmas time, being at my grandmother's house because we would travel to the neighborhood school that my family all went to, and my parents would come get us after school. So this was long before we became latchkey kids. We weren't quite old enough to be latchkey kids yet. So my grandparents literally lived around the corner from each other. So one week we would go to one grandparent's house. The next week we would go to the other grandparent's house. So I was at my father's mother's house. And it just seemed, I was just very, very, very overwhelmed. It just didn't seem like I wanted to just keep going. It just, everything was sad. Everything was literally dark. And it was, maybe it had something to do with the fact that the weather had changed, seasonal depression. Those aren't things that you understand as a fourth grader. You just understand that it's, things aren't good for me. Things aren't right. And I was always sad. And those were the days. There weren't words like mental health, or there weren't terms like help people seek help. It was always, boy, get up, you all right, quit playing around and go do this and go do that. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Those words weren't voiced back then,
right? And certainly not for children.
Not for children. Definitely not for children. This was the 70s, so it was tough love. So
yeah.
So next, I'm talking to my grandmother. Like I told her, so I didn't want to live anymore. Nobody. I didn't feel like nobody loved me. I didn't feel like there wasn't any love left and available in our family. And I remember crying and crying and crying a lot. And I was supposed to go with my aunt was coming to pick us up to take us to the Christmas festival down in downtown at Cobo Hall. And so she was going to pick us up, and then we were going to go to my dad's house afterwards. And he was going to pick us up from there. And so my grandmother immediately called my dad at work, and he came. He was supposed to pick me up, but my aunt got to me first. And so she was like, "Well, no, you coming with me?" I'm like, "I'm supposed to go with Dad." He's like, "No, no, no, no. I told your mama this is what's going to happen." So the three of us, we pile in the car, and we go downtown, and I have a great time. And I remember vividly being at the Winter Festival, the Christmas Carnival. I forget the exact name that they had for it at the time, and just going through all the different exhibits and just having fun and taking pictures with Santa, and pretty much forgetting all about what had happened earlier. And before I know it, we are in the car, and my dad's waiting on us at my aunt's house, and then it dawned on me, hey, I'd had a little issue earlier. And being afraid at that point I was going to be in trouble for having those feelings, because that, when you're a man child, and you're not supposed to, as men are taught not to have those kind of feelings.
Right.
Men are taught not to have those kind of feelings. So I didn't know how to, process that. So my dad says, "Well, come on, let's go." And so he grabs us, and we go to his house, and we wind up talking. And he did the best he could, but I tried to explain to him my feelings, and I just remember him saying to me, "Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. One, when you start having those feelings, and two, there's nothing bigger than you. You're a very strong and powerful young man. And no matter what the feelings are, there's nothing or no one that's bigger or stronger than you." And those are the words that have stuck with me to this day.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I've got goosebumps everywhere. That's amazing. And coming from, like you said, somebody at the time and in a society where we didn't really talk about those things. And I can just imagine as a parent, if my 8 or 9-year-old came up to me and said those things, like, what would you say? And that was beautiful and perfect. And yeah.
Thank you.
I love
at the time, it was very very tough on me. It was a big change where you go from having everybody in the house, mom and dad, your brothers, and parents not always getting along, but that's that was the norm, because our family friends, their parents didn't always get along, but they were still together. It was Friday night arguments, Saturday night party, Sunday night church. And that's how it was. And everybody still stuck together. Some of which those others friends, they didn't make it through with their parents. But that was, it was a different time. It was. You look at things now, the way society is set up is almost 180-degree different from where things were from the 70s and 80s as they are now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, I mean, speaks to you and your level of emotional intelligence at that age too, that you could vocalize and you could understand, I'm not feeling love. I'm not feeling what I want to be feeling, what I think I should be feeling. And that takes a lot too. Like I still have trouble doing things like that and being like, I'm feeling off, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know what exactly I'm feeling. So learning to sit for a moment, even as adults, and try to figure out what this feeling is and what's missing so that, we can try to fix it and try to find it. And obviously you couldn't fix your parents' divorce, and you were probably picking up on that as well, knowing that your parents weren't in love anymore because they had split up. And then, what does that mean for you as a kid? Do they still love me? Because they obviously don't love each other in the same way anymore. And just picking up on all of that going around. And yeah, it's kind of amazing that you that you just knew what was missing and you could point it out.
Well, I really didn't understand the feelings. I didn't understand what it was or why I felt that way. I just knew what was going on around me wasn't conducive to me wanting to be there anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm probably the only thing at that point in my life that was going well was school. School has always been a mainstay for me in terms of being. No matter what's going on, I can control school. I can control whether or not I get good grades or not. That's probably. I'm pretty sure that was the only thing I could control at that time. Yeah. And also, it was winter, so if I wasn't playing any sports. So normally I could play a sport. I can go out and take those frustrations out, no matter, playing basketball or whatever, or football. Even at that age, I was pretty good as a football player because I couldn't get in trouble for hitting anybody. So if I could hit somebody as hard as I could, and it was good, that was what was encouraged. So that allowed me to excel at a young age at football.
Yeah. So then, sort of once you got through that time in your life, was it smooth sailing after that, or did those feelings ever come back again?
Well, I started to understand what seasonal depression was as I've gotten older, in terms of when things get dark. Earlier as the seasons change, I know I need to be around light, and even if it's the summertime, if I'm on the inside, I need to have the sunlight available to me. I realized that as an adult that being inside with the lights out at 10 a.m. in the morning is not a good thing. I need to be up and I need to be moving. I need to have sunshine. I need to have that boost of energy, that vitamin D that the sun provides, and that's something I've learned that I've needed to put myself in that position to not have to deal with that sort of thing, deal with those emotions, I should say, as an adult. That's something that I've learned, and also, let's see, probably maybe a few other times as I've gotten older, I've had to fight those feelings again. But I know what it feels like when it's coming, and I also have I haven't been in a while. I have as an adult pretty much kept a counselor to keep track of my life, of where I'm going and what I'm doing, and that has helped a lot. Yeah. And I don't think I have not specifically gone for those issues, but just the fact that I've had somebody that I can talk to, and in a no judgment zone, and talk about issues and feelings that are going on in my life, that helps as well. I know in the Black community, it's a stigma not to go to see a counselor, not to go to a psychiatrist or psychologist. Well, I think it's quite the opposite. I think we need to go. We always talk about we got Jesus. That's what Jesus is for. Yeah, that's what Jesus is for, and that's what God is for. But God made the psychiatrist for a reason. That we So when you have things that it's not that God can't handle it, is that they're trying to handle everybody. So I'm gonna put these people here for you, so I can help you to help yourself to get help from them. So
Mhm.
I think that I'm glad that my employer gives us a good opportunity to go and go and get counseling. So many sessions
Yeah.
per year, and and once after we've met our deductible, it's pretty reasonable to go after that. So that's one thing I do applaud my employer for. They've gone out of their way specifically to make sure that mental health and mental health services are available through my job.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're getting more to that place, but it's also preventative mental health care,
Yes.
right? Like you go see the doctor a couple times a year or once a year just to make sure everything's okay before we get to that emergency state of health. And we need to do the same thing for our mental health, and whether that's, talking to a counselor regularly or a therapist or whatever, talking to somebody regularly just to stay on track and make sure that everything is smooth sailing and keeping those goals ahead of us, those dreams alive, so we always have something to move forward towards, helps a lot too. And like you said, recognizing seasonal depression and whatever it is for you that brings you down, and when you can sort of see it coming or sense those feelings at the beginning, and kind of stop them and take care of them before you spiral down and they get really big.
Yeah,
Super
I've learned
important.
that all friends aren't made for everything. Some friends don't have the capability to be able to talk and listen to you, but it's also not always their job. It's their job just to be your friend, not to be your counselor. So
Yeah.
it's good to have a support system on that level, on the of a doctor of that qualification.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So that was a long time ago. We won't say how long ago, but well, you said it was the 70s, so we'll
It
we'll
was the
leave it at that.
70s. Yes.
So, and yeah, that how knowing what you went through as a kid at that age, were you a little more vigilant as a parent to sort of
Oh
keep
yeah.
an eye on your kids' mental
Mhm.
health
Oh
when they
yeah,
were
definitely.
little?
Uh, Little and now. My youngest is 17, and then I have a 19, a 20, a 24-year-old, and I've always kept them in counseling in terms of as they've gone through different levels in their life, different things that they've had to deal with, in terms of me being in a separation. And with my wife at one point, make sure that they had counseling so that they can understand that it's not their fault. That was my main goal. Come
Mm-hmm.
on, you're going to go see the counselor. We're going to go to family counseling. You're going to go to individual counseling, and you need to go ahead and talk and let them know how you feel. Because I know how you feel because that was me at one point, and I don't want you to harbor the feelings that I did. And for the most part, I think probably the youngest one has probably benefited the most from it. The oldest one and my younger daughter, they don't necessarily like talking a lot, but I mandated it for them to go. It was this is what you're going to do. It's not, you don't have a choice.
Right.
So hopefully, of course, those sessions are confidential unless it's something that comes of it where of harm, and so those conversations were confidential.
Yeah.
So hopefully they were able to work their issues through.
Yeah.
Because even
Beautiful.
everybody has issues. I don't care who you are.
Oh,
Everybody has issues.
absolutely. Yeah.
People always say, "Are you who's crazy? Who's normal?" I said, "There's no such thing as normal. Everyone has their issues. Everybody has their little idiosyncrasies that they deal with in their life."
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously that sets an amazing precedent for your kids going forward, that, therapy is just what you do and counseling is just what you do. And it's okay. And you started them early when things were going bad and set that example for them and forced them to do it, whether they wanted to or not. And I'm sure as they get older, and especially if they have kids of their own, they'll figure that out and be like, I see what he was doing there.
Like it
Which
or not,
is,
you're gonna go. I would set the appointments, make sure that my schedule was open, to make sure that they got there, and so we wanted to make sure that they were going to be okay, because they, just like any kid, they were like I was. You're used to a certain thing, and when that wasn't there for them for that period of time, I could see the difference in them, and I want them to make sure that they were going to be okay moving forward.
Yeah. Do you have any words of advice for our listeners who either, I don't think we have any children who are listening, but as a parent of maybe kids who are going through this, or listeners who felt these things as a child, because you're the first person I've talked to who went through this at such a young age. What words of wisdom do you have for those people?
Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid of your feelings. Acknowledge the fact that they are real, and don't push them to the side, because that's only going to make things worse. And don't push people away who are trying to help you. I have friends who have issues, and I know to check on them. And they first thing their first go to is to try and push you away. And I tell them, no, I'm not going anywhere, because if I go somewhere, you may go somewhere, and we want you here. So don't be afraid of your feelings. Ask your children questions. Make sure that they're okay. Don't be afraid to ask them, hey, how something other than how was school. Ask them, how are you feeling about whatever subject that's going on? How are your friends? How are you getting along with your friends? What's going on in your friends' life? Those are things that you need to know. Because if you got friends whose parents may not be getting along and they're seeing a lot of violence, that you may not want to let your kid around that kid, because that's not, especially if that's not what's going on in your house, and we don't want them to normalize that, and tell their friend, to let their friends know that that's not normal either, and try to not to be a part of it, that kind of an environment as best they can. It just don't be afraid to reach out, even as an adult. Just even if you don't think you have an issue, don't you have an issue. Everybody I've ever talked to, whoever thought there wasn't nothing wrong with them, yeah, you really entrenched in something, because you so far entrenched that you don't think nothing's wrong with you.
Right.
So at that point, go and find somebody that you can trust to talk to, and hopefully it's affordable. That's the only thing. Everybody doesn't have a job like mine, where we have EAP services that allow you to have a good amount of conversations throughout the year. Everyone's not that lucky. But there are free local services, and you just have to. The hard part is searching them out. So, and don't be afraid to just to try and find somebody to speak to.
Yes, I love it. And I love how proactive you are about taking care of those around you, like not just your kids, like you just said, with your friends. And I know when I was experiencing those really dark days, I remember, I would tell people I thought were safe, my parents, and like, just so you know what's going on, like I have depression, or whatever. And the worst response is, well, let me know if there's anything I can do. It's like, I'm not in a position to tell you what I need.
I just told you I just told you. You didn't hear it, but I just told you what's going on. So at this point, I may not be saying help, but I'm saying help.
Right. So that, not, and some people just don't know how to respond, but with you being, like you said, tell me how you're feeling. And if they say I'm fine, you don't go anywhere. You're like, no, like I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You can talk to me. And if they don't want to, then, then you just don't budge. If you sense that somebody is not doing well, like don't brush it off, I guess, is, stand firm in your friendship. And sometimes we need a little extra push when we're not feeling very good. So, and we're so afraid of doing that. So that's been inspiring for me personally, to just, stand strong in your wanting to help, and not letting people push you away. Just be like, no, I'm here. I will help you whether you like it or not.
Like it or not. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your story and a different perspective on feeling and parenting and being a kid, and that, mental health affects all ages.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be in dark places as kids too, depending on what's going on in our lives. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your story with me and with our listeners.
No problem. Especially now with kids and having to deal with COVID and being out of school for so long, and now trying to find some type of a normalcy in life, I think is especially prevalent that we do need to get, if we haven't already, have our kids speak to somebody, even though COVID was quote unquote over. But we can quite easily go back into those days quite easily where we're in shutdown. So you need to get the kids speaking to somebody, because it affected them as well.
It did. And it was a lot for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
2 years or 3 years or however long, it was for us as grownups is one thing, but as a kid, that's like a third of your life,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a lot for them. So yes, thank you for that reminder too.
Definitely. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm very, very honored. I know the person who connected us thinks very, very highly of you, and I think very, very highly of them. So I know that I will be in good hands today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.